Hello and welcome to the United Community Channel. My name is Jack and this is your latest Manchester United news. And as always, Monday we've got a busy show. Plenty to talk about, plenty of news over the weekend to dive into. But it's the news that has been breaking in the past maybe half an hour or so that we're leading with tonight. Alejandro Garnacho has given an ultimatum to Manchester United, a cheeky little... Anyway, we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about it. We're also going to talk about the likelihood of him moving to Chelsea as well. Fabrizio Romano has been giving us updates on that, guys, throughout the day. We're going to talk about Baleba as well. Obviously, there's been a lot of news over the weekend suggesting that Manchester United could make a move for him. Is the price going to be right? Will there be players involved in the deal? We'll talk a little bit about that as well. And also, guys, we're going to talk about Donnarumma. He has been excluded from the PSG squad for their upcoming games. What does that mean? And are Manchester United likely to make a move for him? We're going to talk as well, guys, about Jadon Sancho. He's gone off the radar a little bit, but some reports today are suggesting that there are more than one club interested in him. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Laurie Whitwell has been giving us updates, guys, on the Talk of the Devils podcast also. We've got an update on Rasmus Hojlund, and we've also got an update from him on the credit card that Manchester United are using to finance this summer's transfer window, and there might be a little bit of an extension on it and more money available than first thought. But as always, guys, please do smash a like on the video. Do subscribe to the channel if you're new as well. As you can see in the top left, we are closing in on 15,000 subscribers, so please do hit that subscribe button if you're new. But more importantly, get your comments in. Get in and say hello in the live chat. Let me know who's in, and yeah, let me know your thoughts throughout the live show as we jump into it. D is in the chat already. He says an ultimatum. Who the fuck does he think he is? That ego needs bursting. Hope he goes to Chelsea for 50 million and flops the bag of... Anyway, we're going to jump straight into it, guys. We're going to jump straight into it. And obviously, we're going to start with Alejandro Garnacho, aren't we? And look, we know he's leaving Manchester United this summer. Or is he? And that's the question here. Well, we know the links are there with Chelsea, and you know, we know that that is his preferred destination. In fact, it's his only destination. And Fabrizio Romano has been speaking on, was it The Zone, I think, earlier on, and he says that Alejandro has given a message to Manchester United. I want Chelsea, or I stay here and don't play football for 6 to 12 months. You cheeky little fucker. Now, if this is true, and I don't see why it wouldn't be true, because, you know, Fabrizio Romano is not going to put it out there, and he's not going to speak about it on a, you know, on somewhere like The Zone if it wasn't true. But Alejandro Garnacho giving Manchester United an ultimatum like that is just so far outside of the level that he thinks he is. It's just unbelievable. And you know what? An awful large part of me wishes we didn't need sales as much as we do this summer, because I would love nothing more for to see him sit on the bench and train with the reserves and train with, you know, the under 18s for the next 6 to 12 months. God. This is the kind of mentality that Ruben Amorim and Ineos and the powers that be at Manchester United are trying to weed out of the club. And in my opinion, they're doing a pretty good job of it. Now, there's a few left. There's one or two left. And if you go back to a couple of years ago before Erik ten Hag took over in the whole Rangnick era with Pogba, Lingard, Ronaldo, you know, what happened with Greenwood, you know, you had the whole Harry Maguire situation going on. Sancho was there as well. Rashford, it was just a nightmare. You know, you were talking about leaks coming out of the dressing room. You were talking about, you know, players not having respect for the badge, for their manager, for the, I suppose, their performances on the weekend as well. And I think we've done a pretty good job over the last couple of years of cleansing the squad. And we said that was needed, didn't we? Now, there was a number of reasons for, you know, and there's some people left that need to be moved on, but for different reasons. Luke Shaw, for example, needs to be moved on because he can't stay fit. You know, Casemiro needs to be moved on because he's getting old and he's on too much money. And these are the types of players that, look, you don't mind if they do continue with Manchester United albeit not in a leading role, and you want to obviously rebuild and reshape the squad. But I think in terms of weeding out the bad eggs within the Manchester United squad, I think we've done a relatively good job on it over the last few years. There's a few left. There's one or two left. The bomb squad. Now, I feel sorry for the likes of Malacia and Anthony who get thrown into, the bomb squad, quote unquote, because, they're simply just not good enough. They're professional, and Anthony, for example, we've always said, works exceptionally hard when he's playing football for Manchester United, when he did play football for Manchester United. Ultimately, he's just not good enough. And Malacia had a massive injury, and he was always going to be a backup and so on and so forth. But the Sancho, Garnacho and Rashford were the three that needed to be moved on because of their attitude, because of their work ethic, and because of, their ego an awful lot of the time. And we're seeing absolutely massive ego here with Alejandro Garnacho saying to Manchester United that, I'll stay and sit on the bench for 12 months. I mean, first and foremost, there is an awful lot of power within the player side here. He doesn't have to accept any deal to move to another club. He's got a contract, and we know the power that players have. And ultimately, it's their decision on where they move. But, I mean, you've got a contract with Manchester United, and, I think... I mean, it's probably unfair to say that, he didn't fulfill his contract, because, the one thing I would say about Garnacho is that he was always available. He seems to be the type of player who just wants to play football. But his ego, I mean, he wants to be Cristiano Ronaldo, but he's acting like, fucking David Bellion. And I apologise to David Bellion if he's watching, because he might have been the utmost professional. You know what I mean? But in terms of stature and in terms of quality, I think Garnacho has no real guidance around him, for his agent to be allowing him to do things like this. And obviously, look, emotions were running high after the Europa League final when he said what he said. And I said it at the time, look, I didn't have a real big issue with what he said in the interview after the Europa League final, because, tensions are running high, and, you're after losing a final, and, you're after playing a lot of games in the build-up, and ultimately then you're dropped for it. But he seems to not have a good support structure around him. That's what I would say. Where are the people getting around him, advising him, going, don't put on an Aston Villa shirt? You know what I mean? Don't do any interviews after the game in the Europa League, because you're hot-headed and you might say something you regret. Don't be liking tweets that criticise your teammates or your manager. Don't be telling Manchester United that you're happy to sit on the bench for 12 months rather than, trying to find a move away. It doesn't look like he has that support structure around him. And I think if he did, we wouldn't be seeing these kind of things. And look, I think Garnacho is a fantastic footballer, and he's got a really high ceiling. I don't think he'll ever get to the levels of Cristiano Ronaldo. I think he thinks he will, but I think it's quite clear that he won't. But I think ultimately he's got to be smarter, and he's a young man, and these young men who are multi-millionaires and are in the public spotlight all of the time, especially when you play for Manchester United, they need to have good support structures around them, and some of them don't, and that's why an awful lot of them fall by the wayside. Now, I'm not saying he's going to fall by the wayside, but it just seems like Chelsea would be the perfect fit for him. In terms of Chelsea love a mercenary every now and again, and look, I could see him going to Chelsea and being somewhat successful, whatever that entails, and how Chelsea got on. I think Chelsea over the next couple of years are going to be right up there in contention with some Premier League titles. But I can also see him going to Chelsea and just fading away, to be quite honest with you, and getting swallowed up. But that remains to be seen. I think his attitude needs to change, and he needs to realise that, he's not Cristiano Ronaldo, and he never will be, and that's where the support structure around him comes from, when he needs to have people advising him properly. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Hilvern says, good afternoon, watching from the Caribbean islands, Dominica. Good to see you, pal. Thanks for joining. I hope you're enjoying the show. Aaron says, I'll let the see you next Tuesday rot in the reserves. Yeah, maybe so. Hilvern says, who cares? He will not get that chance for the World Cup. And that's a great point that Hilvern makes there, because it's a World Cup year and he wants to get into the Argentinian squad. And look, I think it benefits everybody for him to leave, and I think Manchester United will ultimately sell him, but we've got to sell him at the price that we value him, and you can't let Chelsea be coming in and lowballing us, and we'll get onto a price tag in a moment, but ultimately we've got to sell him to Chelsea to the price that we deem to be good value, and I think Ineos will do that, and I think, you know, the powers that be now are the negotiation side of things seems to be improving at Manchester United. D says, what's the chances he kisses the Chelsea badge first time of asking? Won't play for 6 to 12 months. That's breach of contract. Rip his contract up and be done with him. Need the transfer value. Well, I think what he's saying there, D, more than anything else, is that not that he won't play football. He knows he won't play football if he stays at Manchester United. Now, he'll be available for selection, and he will make himself available for selection because, you know, he wants to fulfill his side of the contract. But ultimately, he knows if he doesn't get a deal to move to Chelsea, he'll stay put. Ruben Amorim won't have him in the squad. He'll train on his own, and he'll see it out another 6 or 12 months out of the contract. I don't think he would go on strike, basically. Chelsea fans won't want him, surely, if he behaves like that. Well, I mean, the more these kind of things go on, I mean, what club would want him? Now, there's always going to be clubs in to take players. I mean, always, you know, because a club of maybe lesser stature, and I include Chelsea in this, to Manchester United, they're not as big a club. They are a better team at the moment than Manchester United, but they're not a bigger club, and I don't think they ever will be. But ultimately, there's always going to be teams coming in for failing stars. You know, we see it with Jadon Sancho, and we'll get on to him in a moment, like being linked with Turkish teams, for example, and Jesse Lingard going to play in South Korea, and so on and so forth. There will always be teams willing to take a chance. Hilvern says, player power, we need to stop that right now in our club, and is very disrespectful, his ego. Well, I think we're getting to the root cause of it. You know, the likes of Rashford now has been moved on. Sancho is going to go in this window. Garnacho is going to go in this window. You know, you've seen over the last few years, I mean, Ineos sold 14 players last year. Well, not 14 players, 14 players left. Whether it be their contracts ended or we moved them on. And I think that is part of cleansing out the squad. It really, really is. And I don't think we're too far away from it. Like I said at the start of the show, there are going to be players that remain at Manchester United that we want to move on. But I think the majority of them that are left are for different reasons. Luke Shaw, injury record. Casemiro, too old, too much money. Delot, maybe not quite good enough. These types of players. I think the bad apples and the bad eggs, we've nearly got them all gone now. And I think this summer, I think we'll see the last of them go. I really do. What else have we got? Dara says, let him rot in the reserves. Warren says, I keep him here and not playing football. Let him rot at least until January. Money be damned. Well, see, the thing about it is here now. Garnacho wants Chelsea. Chelsea want Garnacho, and Manchester United are willing to sell to Chelsea. All we've got to do here is agree, and by all accounts, personal terms have been agreed, and that won't be an issue. It's all down to Manchester United and Chelsea agreeing a fee. That's it, you know. And if we're talking about what that fee might be, again, Fabrizio Romano gave us an update today on Gimme Sports, and he says that Chelsea and Man United are in direct contact, but there's still a difference in valuation, as Chelsea want to pay around 30 million and Manchester United start from 50. We can also reveal that Chelsea offered the chance to include some players as part of the negotiations. Nicholas Jackson, Christopher Nkunku have been discussed, as well as Axel Disasi and Renato Vega. The answer from Manchester United, they want money, fresh money to reinvest on different positions rather than going for these players, despite the appreciation for some of them, and rightly so. First and foremost, let's get on to this part. I mean, 30 million for Alejandro Garnacho, when you're seeing the likes of Madueke going from Chelsea to Arsenal for 50. I mean, there's no way Garnacho moves from Manchester United for 30 million. No way. Absolutely no way. His ceiling is too high. I think he's already a better player than Madueke. And, the market value has been set early in the transfer window. When you talk about Alanga, for example, going for 55, and then we're talking about Cunha, we're talking about Mbeumo around 65. I think Manchester United and Chelsea will ultimately settle on maybe a 40 plus 5 or 40 plus 10. And I would take that. And I think it would be, because it's going to be pure profit on the books, and it will provide a healthy cash injection there to balance the books, because what Manchester United are doing at the moment is we're going out to try and sign players, and we'll get on to Baleba and Donnarumma and whoever else it may be that we might sign between now and the end of the window. Manchester United seem confident that they will get sales done before the end of the window, and that's why we can initiate talks with the likes of Brighton for Baleba and Lemens, for example, as a goalkeeper, and whatever other areas we look to strengthen. So I think ultimately getting a 40 million fee in for Garnacho plus add-ons, I think would provide a real good, healthy cash injection there to balance the books if we are to go out and get somebody like a Baleba for. And I don't think we would pay 100 million. We'll get on to that in a minute. I think it would be closer to maybe 70 or 80 million. But I like what I'm hearing as well here with Manchester United, that they're not interested in any swap deals. The answer for Manchester United, they want money. Fresh money to reinvest on different positions, and absolutely rightly so. You shouldn't be going out and trying to make up a squad with players that are being used to bring down the price of the player that wants to be sold or that wants to be bought by the opposition club. We looked at Jackson, we discussed Nkunku, and ultimately, rightly so, we came to the conclusion on both of them that are not good enough to move to Manchester United. And I spoke about Nkunku, was it last summer, the summer before he moved to Chelsea, saying that, I think it was last summer, that I would have loved to seen him play for Manchester United. But he's been completely underwhelming in the Premier League. He's had injuries and so on and so forth. So I think Ineos are being really smart here, and they're saying, no, we just want money. Show me the money, and we'll do with that money how we please then, rather than you just landing some of your deadwood in on top of us. I think it's the best way to go. I really do. D says, let him stay. Require he shows up to every game to sit in the stands, and if he doesn't, fine him. If he trains anywhere else, fine him. Every given chance, fine him. Warren says he won't fight for one place. How is he going to fight for 15 players for the same spot? Exactly, at Chelsea, 100%. Dara says he's going around vaping as well. Obviously his choice, but doesn't look great posting pictures of it. I didn't see that. I mean, again, you're talking about a player with very little support structure around him, And I know, look, years ago, back in the 2000s, in the summer transfer windows and stuff, there was always pictures of Rooney, smoking a cig on a balcony in Spain somewhere. But it's not a good look. It's not a good look. And we've moved on a little bit from that in the 20 years since. And Garnacho's a role model to a lot of younger kids. And I think he's not being a good one at the moment. He really isn't. And you're always going to have the Garnacho fans. It's like the Ronaldo kind of pull, and the Neymar pull, and the Messi pull, where there's a massive amount of people who support the clubs that they play for. And then when they move clubs, they then support them clubs because they support the player more than they actually do the club. And I can never wrap my head around that. Dara says, what will happen is it will get to a day or two before the end of the transfer window. If Sancho, Garnacho and Antony want to be in the World Cup teams, they will go wherever will pay up. Well, see, it's a kind of a catch-22 as well. The later you go in the window, because what happens is ultimately the price of a player gets less and less as the window progresses, and especially when it's been made so public that Manchester United want to sell these players. Clubs will start, testing the waters with lower bids, and that can be a factor. And I think Manchester United need to stick to their guns here. I think Garnacho was talking about sitting on the bench for 6 months. Well, that means we'd move him on in January, and if we could get 40 million for him in January, brilliant. But will you get 40 million in January if he sits on the bench for, or if he's not even in the squad for 6 months? Probably not. That's the concern there as well. Can we turn it into our to our favour? Player for Lavia. He looked promising and still young. Fits the profile. Maybe so. Phil says, if Brighton believe that Baleba is worth 100 million, then why are they only paying him 12 grand a week? Well, because they're smart, pretty much. And look, it's a good segue, and we will get on to Baleba now. We've had updates from Fabrizio Romano today on YouTube, guys, about Baleba. He says Manchester United plan for new talks for Baleba in the coming days. Man United believe Baleba is keen on the move and personal terms won't be an issue. Contacts follow on Brighton's side as deal remains very difficult, but United will try. And look, all of the signs, and I said this last week, all of the signs are pointing towards Manchester United really, really going for Baleba. And look, we'll get on to what Laurie Whitwell said later in the show about, you know, the credit card limit has been extended a little bit, and maybe that's where the money is coming from. But also it goes back to what I said a few minutes ago. By the looks of things, Manchester United seem confident that they will get money in the door before the end of the transfer window for the Garnachos, for the Sanchos, for the Anthonys, maybe even a Malacia, who knows. And I think they are confident on it, and that confidence then allows them to go and really have an attempt at somebody like Baleba. Now, other reports, guys, from Fabrizio says in the next days, Man United are expected to try and understand the situation with Brighton regarding Baleba, and whether there is space to negotiate. Personal terms will not be an issue. And look, we heard last week that Brighton have £104 million price tag on his head, and a lot of people have been talking about the Caicedo deal and how Baleba obviously plays in the same position and similar player, and they expect him to go for similar money. I don't think that's going to be the case, to be honest with you. And the reason why I don't think we will pay as much, if we do get Baleba, that we will pay as much as Chelsea did for Caicedo, is that there was multiple clubs in for Caicedo at the time. And it looks like we're the only ones in for Baleba. And I think that obviously benefits us. Now, we saw last week that Manchester United have obviously approached his representatives through intermediaries. The days of tapping up players seem to be gone, or you know, when you weren't allowed to tap up players seem to be gone. Seems you can just talk to anybody now by the looks of things. But so Manchester United are doing what they've done on previous signings, even this summer. You know, Mbeumo was one, and then obviously Sesko as well, where we go to the player's representative first to understand and to announce to them our intention. We want you, and you know, let us know what roughly you would like as a package in terms of salary, in terms of bonuses, in terms of signing on fees, whatever the case may be. And it seems like a deal was done relatively quick. Now, it's not a deal until, you know, the player decides to sign and we agree a fee. But personal terms seem to have been agreed relatively quick. And what that does then, and we've seen this with Sesko, and Sesko is a massive example here, because Newcastle, and Man United are not stupid enough to do this, and Newcastle were bidding against themselves for Sesko. They went in for a bid for Sesko, and then they heard Manchester United were interested. And without the first bid even being rejected, they went in with a higher bid. And then that was accepted. So they were bidding against themselves. And Man United just went, all right, hold on. We're going to go and talk to the player here. And if we go to talk to the player and we get the impression from him that he only wants us, then it will allow us to go in and lower the negotiation offer. You know, where you can, you know, and we got Sesko cheaper than what Newcastle were bidding. You know what I mean? Because the player wanted us. Similarly, with Baleba, Manchester United have gone to him and they've gone to his representatives and they said, look, we want you. You know, you are the future of our central midfield. And that in turn will make him say, right, okay, I'm not pushing for a move, but if you can negotiate, I'd be happy to sign. Or it will mean he goes to the club and go, look, Man United are here. They might not come back. I want to leave. And then Brighton are forced lower their valuation a little bit, and United can come in. I reckon we could get Baleba for 70 to 80 million pounds. That is now. So you're talking probably about 100 million euros, but I think 70 or 80 million pounds. I think we could genuinely get Baleba. And again, if you're talking about structuring that deal in a way that benefits Manchester United, you're talking about, are you doing? I think Man United. I think the personal terms that were agreed were like a 5-year deal +1 with the option of a further year, which United do an awful lot. I mean, if that's the case, and Brighton were happy to break down, your payments, let's say over 4 years, I mean, that's 20 million every summer. Now, the one thing I would say is that Man United are gambling. They are gambling, okay? And I think this is what Ineos have, and I'd say in conjunction with Ruben Amorim, and I think Ruben Amorim is probably happy that this is happening. We're gambling now rather than a slow build. We go, well, look, if Baleba stays for another year, we'd be back in for him next year anyway. Let's try and get him now before there's not a whole heap of competition next summer if he has another good season. So let's go get him now, and let's gamble that he does be a success, and we've got him. And it remains to be seen whether that is a smart tactic or not. Because if you go and buy a Baleba, you buy a Sesko, and you max out the credit card, for example, and it doesn't work out, you're still going to be paying off them installments every year for the next 3 or 4 years and not having good players at your club. So I think Manchester United have identified serious Premier League proven talents in Mbeumo, Cunha, and now Baleba, and that's the ploy. They're going, right, well, we're going to get them now. We're going all out. We're going to try and, bulk up the squad now, especially when you've only got one game a week, and get back into the Champions League next season. And you get back into the Champions League, you get, 150, 200 million, whatever the case may be, and all of a sudden the books are balanced. You can reinvest next year then as well, and so on and so forth. But if this doesn't work out, if we go out and spend a load of money on Baleba after getting Cunha, Sesko and Mbeumo, and then maybe a goalkeeper as well, and we don't get Champions League football next year, and we finish outside of Europe completely, then it's an absolute disaster, and it's a nightmare. But I think when you're signing players like Baleba, I think ultimately, and Cunha and Mbeumo and Sesko, I think ultimately you're giving yourself the best opportunity possible to get into the Champions League spots. I really do believe it. Now, let's see what you're saying in the chat here. Let me just take a drink of water. Smash a like on the video as well, by the way, guys. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. On the road to 15,000 subscribers. Do smash that like button for us as well. It helps out the channel an awful lot. Take a second. 17 likes out of 190 people that have watched. So take a second and hit that like button for me. Now, D says, look at the names on those shirts behind you. Immortalised in red. Forever they will be. Let him leave. Take 40 million for him now, and he will never be up to the stature of our badge. That's in relation to Garnacho. Yeah, and you make a great point, D. 100%. He also says, look at Baleba coming in. It's promising. And talk of Gigi coming in too for pennies. If you have told every one of us this afternoon that Europa League final, if you had told every one of us that afternoon of the Europa League final that we'd have Cunha and Mbeumo and Sesko, etc., we'd have took the arm off you. 100%, absolutely 100%. You do have to give credit here to Ineos on how they've moved this summer. Wilcox, Barada, Vivel. I call him Vivel. I'm going to continue to call him Vivel because Vivel, yeah. They've moved really, really well this summer. Getting Cunha over the line instantly as soon as the window opened was fantastic. Obviously, the Mbeumo deal dragged on, but since then, we actually closed out. Once the Mbeumo deal went in and we committed to it, we actually closed it out in a matter of days. We done the same thing with Sesko. I think it was 4 days from when the bid went in to, I think, him being unveiled at Old Trafford. So it was really, really fast. And I think something similar with Baleba could potentially happen. I think it's more realistic that we see Baleba come towards the end of the window. And, you know, he's not here for the first couple of games. And that would be okay. When you're signing somebody of his quality, you know, you've got to just make sure that you're getting his signature, and that's it. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think we do have to give credit to Ineos for the transfer window that we've had so far. Baleba coming in surely is the boot up the rear. The likes of Manu needs to see his work rate and what's required to play under the manager. Well, look, I mean, with Manu, I mean, I don't think there's any question with Manu about his work rate. I think he's struggling a little bit to just kind of understand his role in the team, and that's okay with a young player. It's okay, and like I'm not going to have any, you know, Manu propaganda on this channel ever. You know, now has he continued the upward trajectory that we seen when he first broke onto the scene under Erik ten Hag? No, we haven't. But he's young. He's a young kid and he's still learning the game. And there's a whole new system that's come in with Ruben Amorim. And he's yet to really find out. And I think Ruben Amorim is probably yet to find out what his best position is. And I'm under no illusions that he'll be given the time. And I want to see him get a new contract because you should be building around him. And you know what, lads? We made a massive mistake with Marcus Rashford the year before he got the 30 goal a season. I think he scored, was it 11 or 12 goals or something, and he was eyeing a new contract. And we could have easily gone in then and given him 200 grand a week, but we didn't. We waited. And then the following season, he scored 30 goals. And Rashford was going, I'm going to wait here until this season is over. And all of a sudden, then he scores 30 goals. And he can demand a new contract of 320 grand a week or whatever it was. I think we tie Kobbie Mainoo down to a new deal yesterday. I genuinely do think we should do that because he's not going through the best of time at the moment, and he's not, he's like I said, he's trying to figure out the best position for himself and so on and so forth. Let's give him the backing now of a new contract. Now, the new contract has got to be right, but I don't think Kobbie Mainoo can demand the same type of money as he did 12 months ago. He can't, in my eyes. Now, I think he's got at least 3 years left on his deal. But I think we go in and show our support for Kobbie Mainoo and give him a new deal, if that's what he wants, and give him 80 grand a week or 100 grand a week or whatever the case may be. And say, look, here you go. This is us backing you and supporting you, and we want you here for the long term. Now go out and improve and prove yourself. And in 2 or 3 years' time, or 1 or 2 years' time, depending on how well you do, we'll come back to the table and we'll up your wages again. And you could give a player a new contract every season. Absolutely, no problem. You know what I mean? But I think it would be a good kind of show of faith from Manchester United and a good time to negotiate from Manchester United to keep the salary down. Because we heard, didn't we, that Mainoo was looking, was it 150 grand a week he was looking for? He was looking for more than what he should have been on. And I think the power is slightly shifted to Manchester United's favour now, considering the performances that he's put in. But ultimately, I think it would be a good show of confidence. As a fan base, our discussion has changed. The way we're all talking about everything has changed. There's a bit of momentum here that we've been lacking for about a decade. At 100%, the negativity surrounding Manchester United is getting less and less. It really is. Now, I'm talking about behind the scenes and in the dressing room and so on and so forth. The only negativity we've had, and unfortunately it's the most important one, is on the pitch, because results last season were atrocious. But we're being run right now by Ineos. They're like what we said before. All we wanted when the club was up for sale, whoever took over, was to have competent people in important areas of the football club, and we've got that now, and it's been run correctly. We start changing the results on the pitch now. All of a sudden, the smiles on people's faces come back, and it's cool to be a Manchester United. Not that we give a fuck whether it's cool to be a Man United fan or not. We're never going to stop supporting them, but it's a good place to be. And I think we're going in the right direction. I think this summer transfer window has been massively positive, and I think Ineos are doing a good job. I said it. People were screaming and shouting 6 months ago when all of the layoffs started to come, and results on the pitch were being terrible. And I was just saying, will you just relax? Just relax. Ineos have got a plan. They're able to. Ineos in the past, have gone into failing businesses and they've made them profitable. And they will do that with Manchester United. Manchester United had a bloated staff, and they needed to cut staff because we had more staff employed than any other club in the Premier League, and I think it saved us about 35 million. Now, you don't like to see anybody losing their jobs, but ultimately it was the right decision for Manchester United. It was, and we've seen what they've done now. I think they've had two very, very positive summer transfer windows. The one last year when you're getting De Ligt, Mazraoui, Ugarte, Yoro, Xerxes, I think very, very positive window. You also sold or offloaded 14 players, which was fantastic. And then this summer, we know what's happened. Cunha, Mbuemo, Sesko, hopefully Baleba, and maybe a new goalkeeper. I mean, lads, there can't be too much negativity there. There really can't. That's exactly what I was trying to get across with Menu, Jack. Well put. That's why this is the best United news outlet on any platform. There we go. Appreciate it, man. Right, let's move it on, guys, and let's talk about the goalkeeper and a potential new goalkeeper coming into Manchester United. Will it happen? Will it not happen? I think ultimately it's going to come down to sales and maybe the latter stages of the transfer window. But we do have some updates on Donnarumma. Fabrizio Romano has said today that Donnarumma will leave PSG for sure, most likely this or eventually next summer. The relationship is completely broken after the club decide to exclude him from the squad for the Super Cup. Understand that Premier League is the most likely destination. Then we've got Arthur Perret. I'm not too sure. Again, pinch of salt with this guy. He seems to be a French journalist for L'Equipe. He says that Chelsea and Manchester United have inquired about Donnarumma. The two clubs have expressed interest in recent days, but at the moment there aren't any concrete discussions as no formal talks have begun. And look, I'm not surprised that no formal talks have begun, to be quite honest with you, because especially on United's standpoint, we need sales. You know what I mean? But Laurie Whitwell has given an update on Talk of the Devils also. He says it's clearly something that United are aware of. If it actually then progresses to anything substantial, I don't know. I'm more hesitant on that. I think the focus is sales and seeing if anything can happen with Baleba rather than the goalkeeper. I said this all the way back before probably the transfer window even opened. I said the goalkeeper will be one of the lowest priority areas to fix for Manchester United, because I just didn't see it as, not that it was perfect and not that it was, that it shouldn't be upgraded, but if you're putting it on the level of importance, I think it's right down at the end. I really, really do. I think, look, Andre Onana had a hot and cold season last year, and that's probably putting it kindly. But ultimately, in the league, I think 5 mistakes or 6 mistakes leading to goals, it's not an awful lot. The issue was getting goals into the team, bulking up the team, and then, of course, midfield and defence, or whatever the case may be. I just didn't think it was going to be high on the priority list. And according to Laurie Whitwell here, again, it seems like if we do bring in a goalkeeper, it will be the last position that we go for. Because obviously Baleba is next. And United are going to work hard on getting a number 6 in, or a midfielder, 6, 8, whatever you want to call it. And then if that can get done, then we look at a goalkeeper. Now, if by this time next week we get 50 million for Garnacho, 20 million for Sancho, 30 million for Anthony, and, a Mars bar for fucking Malacia, then, okay, doors open. Let's go. We've got the money. Let's go. And then you could start moving for, but I think it's got to be this one deal at a time scenario, because we need to get sales done on the flip side of that. So I think that's why. But like I said, I mean, if all of a sudden an influx of cash comes in, absolutely we could see moving for Donnarumma. Now look, supposedly you could get Donnarumma for less than 30 million euros, which is absolute pennies for a goalkeeper of his quality. The issue remains, and the big issue that would be the case here is, of course, what his salary would be. If we look at his salary at PSG, he's on 250,000 a week, is he? Yeah, he's on about 250 grand a week at PSG. Now, we've seen Sesko come in, and we know that a striker was such a high priority for Manchester United that a lot of the pulling power would be on the player side, especially with the striker. And because it was going to be a striker market, they could nearly demand what they want. And we've got Sesko on 160 grand a week. That's very, very good money. It's very, very good money. Now, if we could get Donnarumma for 25 million and give him 200 grand a week, I think it would be money well spent. I genuinely do. And I was watching the fan debate there on Gary Neville's yoke, and Carragher and Scholes were talking about needing a goalkeeper to win the league. You can't win the league without having a top-class goalkeeper. United started to win the league when Schmeichel came in. Chelsea started winning it when Cech was bought. City started winning it when Ederson was bought. Alisson was one of the key components of winning the league when Liverpool won it, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? I think Manchester United can't win the league until we get a proper goalkeeper in. Now, we're not talking about going to try and win the league over the next... You never know. Maybe this year we bet in, and next year you could challenge for it, and maybe the year after, then 2028, you're winning it, which is the goal. But I don't think you can do it until you get a goalkeeper in. And I think getting Donnarumma in for 25 million euro, basically the best goalkeeper in Europe last season, getting him in for 25 million euro on 200 grand a week is good business in my eyes. I think it really is good business. The one thing I would say is that Chelsea being in for him as well means that they're just going to throw the kitchen sink at him. You know what I mean? They really will. And if I'm being completely honest about Donnarumma, I could see him going to Chelsea. I could, the money, the short-termness of it, the whole lot. I think if he comes to Manchester United, he will be our goalkeeper for a decade. He will. He 100% will. I mean, what age is he? He's not even in his mid-20s, is he? Oh, he is. He's 26 years of age. Yeah, I mean, you could easily get 6 or 7 years out of him. Easily. And I think Manchester United, if the money is right, will go for him. I think we will go for him. But the money has to be right. And Fabrizio Romano is saying it. If it's not this year, it'll be next year. But you've got to take into consideration that it is a World Cup year. Now, there's no doubts that... Donnarumma, is he... Have Italy qualified for the World Cup? I presume they have. But yeah, it's a World Cup year, and players are going to want to play this year and for the majority of the season to obviously make sure they're going into the World Cup, flying fit. I think if we got Donnarumma, lads, I think if we get Baleba and Donnarumma, and I said this last week, and I'm going to double down on it here. If we get Baleba and then move and get Donnarumma, I think we challenge for the league title this season. I really do. One game a week with a team of Baleba, Yoro, De Ligt, Martinez, Ahmad, Dorgu, Baleba, Bruno, Cunha and Buemo Sesko. We challenge for the league, lads. We challenge for the league. I genuinely believe it. Now, there's a lot of work to do between now and the end of the transfer window. If you're going to get Baleba, if you're going to get Donnarumma, that remains to be seen. But this goes back to what I've said about Ineos, really committing this summer and going, right, well, we've got opportunities here now. Let's take the opportunities when they fall to us. Baleba is an opportunity. Why wait 12 months? You know what I mean? If we can do it now, let's do it now and get sales. Similarly with Donnarumma. Donnarumma, 4 months ago, was, not even 4 months ago, 2 months ago, after playing in the European Cup final, winning it for the first time for PSG, he's never going to leave. Now all of a sudden opportunities are arising, and you should take them when they come. And I think Ineos are doing a really good job at attracting players to Manchester United without European football. It remains to be seen whether Donnarumma would be one of them players, because he could go to Chelsea and obviously have European football instantly. But there's something about Manchester United. As Fabrizio Romano said, don't underestimate Manchester United. Simple as that. Simple as that. And if you do it at your peril. Let's see. Dante says, are we seriously in talks with getting Donnarumma? Well, we spoke about that there. D says, there's 26 million quid tag on him. Surely there has to be the idea floating about in the background. There's got to be. I mean, and it's not even 26 million quid. It's 26 million euros. You know what I mean? I think 30 million euros max. And you'd be able to negotiate that down. And then as well, just do it on staggered payments again. You know what I mean? We'll give you 10 million a year for the next 3 years. Or we'll give you 8.5 million a year for the next 3 years and get it down. Brilliant. Mark says, I agree, Jack. Baleba looks like a proper fit for us and could be the catalyst for an exponential increase in performance. Absolutely. D says, ask PSG if they want Sancho for him. We need a keeper, says Dante. Overall, do you think this window has been good, and where do you think we could finish in the table? I mentioned it already. I think it's been a very good window so far for us. I think at the moment anywhere between 6th and 8th. But I think if we get Baleba and we get Donnarumma, second or third. Champions League, definitely. Let's see. Let's move it on. I'm gonna quick fire through some of these guys. Look, we've got an update on Jadon Sancho. A couple of different updates on him. This one says that Inter have now inquired about Jadon Sancho's situation at Manchester United through an intermediary. Ademola Lookman remains the priority, but Jadon Sancho is the top alternative. Now, we had heard reports today from the Besiktas manager saying he would do everything in his power to try and bring Jadon Sancho to the club. And Fabrizio Romano followed that up with an update on DAZN, and he says that if Jadon Sancho cannot find a suitable club for himself in the European market, there is a high possibility that his destination will be Turkey. I think given his track record of professionalism and downing tools and just, inconsistency, I think the Turkish league is probably the best place for him, to be quite honest with you. I don't think he deserves to go to a European club that's in the Champions League, to be honest with you. Now, he could go to Dortmund, he could go to Inter, Juventus, whatever the case may be, and go into the Champions League. I don't think he deserves it, and I don't think anyone would think he deserves it, to be quite honest with you. And that's all I'm going to say about Jadon Sancho, to be quite honest with you. I do think he will go by the end of the window. Now, couple of quick updates from Laurie Whitwell, guys, before we finish up. He speaks on Talk of the Devils, of course, and on Hojlund he was saying he is told if it's a sale, they'd accept less than the book value, which is around £45 million, as you have to include different selling on fees and things like that within the purchase price. So, look, I done an Instagram reel and a TikTok today on Rasmus Hojlund. I ultimately do think he'll be moved on this summer. And again, it's down to getting prices. Now again, he may go on loan. I just think Ineos are saying, well, look, we don't think he's going to be good enough, and I don't think Ruben, and I think the the Fiorentina game and the Everton game on the final game of the pre-season tour in America just spoke volumes about Rasmus Hojlund. You could see in them 2 games we were massively missing that focal point up front, that striker. And he didn't play against Fiorentina. He didn't even come off the bench. I think, did he come on for a few minutes at the end of the Everton game? So I think Ruben Amorim has had enough, to be honest with you. He's played Mason Mount in that position. He's played Cunha all throughout pre-season rather than playing Rasmus Hojlund there. And look, I mean, I feel for Rasmus Hojlund. You know, he's a Manchester United fan, supposedly, and it ultimately hasn't worked out for him, and he hasn't been good enough. And look, we can't rest on our laurels, and we've said this so many times over the last few years that we've got to get the sentimentality out and away from footballers. If it's decided that a player is to move on for the betterment of the club, then it's something we have to do. And I think ultimately Rasmus Hojlund has to be moved on because we need to be able to reinvest. Now, he may move on in terms of a loan with an option to buy. I think there's talks of AC Milan. You know, the option to buy would be 36 million next summer. But they would obviously pay a loan fee of 4 million for the year, and then they would cover his salary. And I think ultimately up front, that's first and foremost a decent deal for United. I think you would hope that he goes back to Italy and can hit the ground running and maybe improve, and then the deal is done then next year. But look, I think ultimately Rasmus Hojlund has not been a success at Manchester United, and it's a shame. It's a shame, and it's been a bad bit of business. But again, we go back to what we've said. You know, there's always going to be that hangover from the previous regime at Manchester United, the Murtas, the Arnolds, the Woodwards, until you have a squad that has been formed by Ineos and the new structure there. And until then, you know, we will always be harping back to the bad deals that we done. You know, Hojlund, not good enough. Casemiro, too much money. You know, Luke Shaw not being moved on, whatever the case may be, whatever the case may be. But look, ultimately Hojlund hasn't been a success. And it's a shame. It's a shame because I like Hojlund. I have to say, I really do. Yeah, D has put the FPL code in the live chat, guys. If you haven't already done so, get involved in the Fantasy Premier League. I've actually got 2 codes for the FPL. Let me just put them up on the screen for ye. And let me see. We've got a head-to-head league as well. So D has put that one in, and there is the other one. So we've got a head-to-head league and the standard league. So, yeah, there we go. There's the 2 codes. If you want to join the Fantasy Premier League, make sure you're doing it, guys. We do have a good kind of chat and banter about it. I might actually start doing some FPL videos for members only as well, and we start maybe doing that once a week. I think it would be a good way of giving you guys more content. So if you do want to become an official channel member, guys, the link is in the description. It's pinned in the live chat as well. Become an official channel member. I'm going to start doing FPL videos for the upcoming season, so keep an eye out for them as well. But anyway, guys, I do appreciate everybody watching and listening. If you haven't already done so, please do hit that like and subscribe button for me. The like button helps us out an awful lot, and we are on the road, like I said, to 15,000 subscribers, so make sure you are hitting that subscribe button as well. As you can see up here, yeah, we're getting very, very close to it. So I do appreciate it, guys. An update on this week then. Tomorrow, I think we should be able to go live tomorrow. Might be a little bit late because I've got a meeting with my own club tomorrow at 7:30. So if I'm back in time for the 9 o'clock show, we'll absolutely do it. It may be a little bit later. Wednesday, I won't be around because I've got a game myself. Thursday then we've got the podcast at 9 o'clock, so make sure you're tuning in for that as well. But guys, I appreciate you watching, appreciate you listening. Like I said, smash the like button, hit that subscribe button as well if you are new to the channel. Thanks to everybody for watching and listening. Hope you have a great day. Hope this week is good. There's a heat wave coming in Ireland. Happy days, and we're going to Oasis on Sunday. Come on, happy days. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for listening, and I'll chat to you tomorrow. Take it easy.